This is a Runcam Thumb camera that I just bought for my drone. This is really cheap. This is the original version, not the Pro version. So this is a high definition camera, but it's a budget model. And I'm going to mount it to my drone and hopefully capture some great footage of me crashing. The reason that I bought it was because it was cheap. It was around about, I don't know, $40 American, about $50 Australian. And basically I break everything. So when I'm flying my drone. So having an expensive GoPro or something like that on my drone is not an option for me, because basically it will definitely get broken. So I went for this. The important thing about this particular model of camera is that it does support gyro flow. So basically steadying the image that comes out using software after you've captured the video. So I bought the kit. I can get this out. It's supposed to come with a mount, so I hope that's in here. I'll just have a quick look. So in the package I got some goodies. So I've got a USB cable. This appears to be the mount, a very minimalistic mount. And that is 3D printed out of TPU. Okay. So I'm guessing the way that it works is this mounts on your drone, and then it has this bracket, and I imagine that this fits in to this. Oh, that's very tight. Well, you don't want it coming out, that's for sure. But oh yeah, it's this power connector that doesn't want to go through. I'll have a look at that in a minute. So there's a nut and a bolt that go through that. A sticker, I guess, for sticking it on. Okay, so this looks to be an alternative mount. Is that correct, or is that part of the same thing? So that can go over. And how does that work? Same sort of deal. Is it? Goes into the bracket. Oh no, it's got a completely separate. Yeah, so there are two mounting options, which is great. Just put that over there. Some more bolts, and looks like a UV filter. Basically put that onto the lens of your camera, and it will help cut out the flare of the sun when you're using it. So to cut costs, this does not have an onboard battery. It has a power connection here, and they've provided the cable, which is teeny tiny, and you need to find a 5-volt connection on your drone in order to operate it. And you can pull this out, and in there is a tiny little socket for your SD card to go in. I do have an SD card here. Is it obvious which way it goes in? It never is. You would assume it goes with the writing up, but nope. Flip it over. If it goes in there. New. What's going on? Very difficult to see in there. I should look to see where the pins are. So the pins are that way. So I should read the instructions, hey? So the micro SD card. Of course, it doesn't really show you. I mean, it must go in this way because that's where the lip is to allow you to pull it back out. Otherwise, you'd never be able to get it out. So this is just a little 16 gig. Is that it? It only goes in that far. Is that the whole? Okay. That seems to fit. It's got a button on the front. Okay. So to turn it on, you press that button. Boot into recording standby mode. The red LED is solid on. Short press of the power shutter button to start the recording. It will flash slowly. Short press again to stop the video. And to connect it to the computer. Okay, so it has a USB slot on there. So when you want to get your footage off there, you use the supplied USB cable. Connect it directly to your computer and then you'll see it as a thumb drive basically, and you can get your video off. So you never need to take that SD card out again. Okay, so that's really good. So that's the camera itself. Now I want to install it on my drone. So this is a 5-inch racing drone. Well, it's a freestyle drone. That's how I use it. So it has a very big battery that sits on top. And really where the camera needs to mount is here. There's a couple of problems with that, and one of them is that this battery, although it has 2 straps on it, it is always possible for this battery to push forward and hit the camera and basically break the camera mount, and the camera can go flying. So I need to figure out something. I'm a little bit worried that this mount that is provided isn't going to be sufficient. And basically I need to mount it in such a way that when I crash, because I will crash, that it doesn't get completely destroyed. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is to get this into its mount. It's, like I said, it's a really tight fit. I'm a little bit concerned about this power cable. but it does need to go on. You can see that there's a little hole, and that will fit around the lens. I guess I just need to be quite careful. Oh, that's interesting. There does appear to be a divot for that. It goes all the way through. It's on the wrong side. You can see that there's a little notch in here which would line up with that power. Probably just got this. It's got to go on that way, but then the notch is on the wrong side. There's no other way to get that on. I'll just have to have a look. Well, that was my bad. I thought that this notch here was actually going to butt up against the round lens, but it's not. The notch is actually there to allow you access to the button. So, well, that's good. So I'll just take this battery off. So where it needs to be mounted, I can't mount it completely at the front because when I crash, I want it to be protected by the front of the drone. So I want to mount it a little bit back. So looking at that, I don't see any way that I can attach that other than perhaps gluing it. I mean, there are holes here for screws, and I could tap screws into the if there were screws. There are no screws. I think this sticker here was to attach this mount, which is the official one that came with it. I think probably the smartest thing would be to super glue that. Super glue will probably stick very, very well. And what would that give me? That would give me something that looked like that. So it would be fairly well protected. I am a little bit worried about the battery coming and knocking it off. I mean, it's inevitable that something like that is going to happen. There's no way to mount a camera on a drone that it isn't going to come off, or it isn't going to even if I face plant the camera like that, there's always the chance that it's going to come off. Would be nice perhaps if I could find some tiny little screws that might help. A normal thing is to cable tie things on, but I suspect that super glue will be good enough. And what I can do is, I mean, I can print some more of these mounts. So if I put it onto another drone, I can use a different mount. Now I could 3D print something a bit more solid. You can see here that this whole cradle here that holds the camera in my drone is something that I designed and 3D printed. And that protects this little camera pretty well. So I could make something more substantial. But I think I will try the super glue methodology. The other thing is I need to find 5 volts, a 5-volt supply, which on this particular flight controller is a little bit hard to come by. So I'll just take the battery out. I might take the straps off. So I always use 2 straps. It prevents the battery coming off most times. But if you crash it hard enough, the battery is going to go flying. So I'll need to find the right hex screw to remove this. Just give me a sec and I'll do that. Okay, so I'll just start removing the top plate. This is an Impulse RC Alien. Frame's made of carbon fibre. It's quite old, but it is an excellent frame. It has 6-inch arms on a 5-inch frame. I don't know why. I bought it like that, second hand. The person that sold it to me had gone with the 6-inch arms, and I guess that would make it a bit more stable as it's flying. Between when this drone was state of the art and the drones I have now, things have improved in the way that the motors have improved, the ESCs have improved, the flight controller, it's all completely different. So I did rebuild this drone with a new flight controller because the one that came with it was it was an Impulse RC flight controller, but it was a bit old. And so I decided to upgrade it. And that would be why my buzzer isn't working. Don't know if you can see that. But right here, that's flapping around in the breeze. It's not, I think it is. Yeah, it's come detached. I was wondering why that wasn't working. So I'll need to solder that back on. But so I need to find 5 volts. And ground. And I think so there's a 5 volt here that I can tap in to. Where else? I really need to, can I get a bit? What else have we got here? Let's say 5 volts there. Five volts, yes, and ground. That's what I need. So the next thing will be, will that power cable, if I just solder this onto there, will it reach? Yes, I believe it will. And will I be able to get it into the back of the unit? Let's say that I mount it here. Then I can put so the power cable can just come up through this hole here. So I think that's the way that I'll do it. And hopefully I can do the soldering on this while it is in place. So just get in there and attach these in there. So I'll crank up the soldering iron and we'll see if we can't get that done. Okay, time for some precision soldering. Got a reasonably good tip on this. Just looking to get nice shiny solder balls on there. And then these wires have already been pre-tinned. So what's the easiest way for me to do this? I'll do the ground first. No, I think I'll do the 5 volts first. Can't see that. Okay, so here we go. Get the soldering iron in behind the, so you can see. Looks good. And I'm melting my TPU mount, the soldering iron. It'll be right. Okay. So that looks good. So the only unknown here is that how clean the 5 volt supply is off this flight controller. Hopefully the battery has, hopefully the camera has something in it, like a capacitor or something that might smooth it out, or some form of filter. The only way to know is to try. So what did I do with the top plate for my drone? I just completely lost it. What did I do with it? Oh. So I just want to check that this will all be fine. So I'm planning on having it there, and then the camera will mount here. Like that. And that leaves me with loads of space to put that in. Probably I will just cable tie the excess underneath, or cable tie it just there. Yeah, I think that's about as best I can do for its maiden flight. Yeah, I think that'll work. All right, I'll see if I can find some super glue. Super glue found. So the idea is I'm just going to slather super glue on here. Put too much of it on. That way it won't stick immediately. There's heaps on there. And I just want to line this up as best I can and as straight as I can. Let me have a look. Now, is this thing off-centered? Doesn't really matter. Just want it to be, as long as it's in parallel with the... How does that look? I think that looks pretty good. So like I said, I've used way too much super glue. That's okay. Could clean some of that up, I guess. Just make it look a bit better. Always got to be careful with super glue. It's when you disrespect it that you end up gluing yourself to something. Okay, I think that is as solid as it's going to get. I'll let it dry later. Where did that screw come from? I think that screw was part of that. So the idea is that let me just get that out of the way. I should probably put the lid back on the super glue, but unless you use it within a couple of days, they always go. So the idea is that camera, I mean, I'm expecting the camera to come off. It's not like it's going to stay there after a crash. The big problem that I have with something like that is finding it afterwards. So you'll crash, the camera will come flying off, the TPU mount will break, and then this tiny little camera is lost in the grass. And that's where the color of the camera is really important, and black is a terrible color. It gets lost easily. I know this for a fact. I actually like this green TPU color. And things made out of that color are fairly easy to find. So I might print my own camera mounts, but like I said, what I would like is to print a better mount, like something more solid, maybe that gets bolted down through these bolt holes here, with a big lug that you can cable tie around there. But I'm really keen to see what the footage is, how it looks coming out of this camera. I've never really bothered filming anything before because, like I said, I wasn't going to fork out $600 for a camera that probably I would bust after the very first flight. And I crash a lot. Because obviously I'm trying new tricks and things like that. I could fly around all day and not crash if all I did was the same stuff that I do every other time. But there's no fun in that, especially if you're flying freestyle, where you want to do basically acrobatic loops and things like that. So what I might do is I might actually, I don't know, find some tape. I do have some insulation tape that's green and yellow that might make that, or maybe I can just hit it with a spray can or something like that. It's just something to make this this camera more visible when it inevitably comes off. So the idea is that then plugs into there. And goes in more snugly than that. Yeah. So that's it. That's how it would look. I need to put the bolt in there. The battery will sit behind it, and like I said, that's the real danger, that if you crash and the battery comes loose and flies into it. And it does happen from time to time, even though I've got two battery straps. It's not a perfect system. The other thing that's really important is that knowing that this thing is going to come off, these wires here need to be secured to the side of the drone here. I need to find some cable ties and just cable tie the slack there. Two reasons. One, to stop it ever coming loose and going into the propellers. And the other thing is that if this camera comes flying off, it will jerk the cable and it will then pull the solder joints off the actual board. So when it comes off, I want it to pull out of the back of the camera or to snap these wires rather than pull the pads off the flight controller, because then I may damage the pads to the point where I can't repair them. Yeah, so that's it. So I need to find some cable ties, and then, well, it's about 9 o'clock at night. I can't fly it tonight. So tomorrow I'll take it out for a spin and take some footage with this, like I said, this $40 camera, and see how it goes. So I think it's going to be great. So I've just completed my first flight. How did it go? Well, I crashed. Of course, first flight, and I crashed. And actually, it was quite a bad one, and the battery came loose. Really, even though I've got 2 straps, there must be something I'm doing wrong. But the point is, the battery came out and it hit the back of the camera. And actually, the good news is it actually just pushed the camera forward like this, and then the battery flipped out and landed about 5 meters away. And the camera was completely unharmed. So, yeah, that's great. Also didn't realize that this camera records audio. I should have probably known that, which is good. And also, I didn't have a high-speed SD card, 64-bit, which is what they recommend to enable gyro flow. So this is the default camera settings, no gyro flow. It's quite a sunny day. I haven't done any color correction or anything like that. It's straight raw, first time flying with the Runcam Thumb. This is not the Pro, this is the cheap budget model. And I'll put the flight footage after this, and quite frankly, I love the thing. And I especially love the thing because it is so cheap that I can afford to lose it, break it, and it's not going to cost me an arm and a leg to replace it. And the video footage is more than enough for me, for what I want. Yeah, so that's it. So here comes the flight footage.